And hello everybody, welcome back to Chaos Incarnate. Today we're going to be reviewing some more matchups, this time in a much more uniform style. I'm not going to be googling anything random this time, and some of these were suggested to me by my friends. This will be a multi-part series, primarily because of the time it is right now, and I don't want to record multiple parts of this video without them. I'm sure you all get the point. Anyway, I hope you all enjoy. Have yourselves a wonderful day. Let's get started. First up on the roster today is Bendy versus Cuphead. Now, this matchup is one that's had a very rocky history. Its DBX was incredible, easily the best thing animated on Death Battle ever, even now, and believe me, there's competition for that. Now, people tend to not like this matchup because it seems to misrepresent Cuphead in a way, because you have two modern indie characters, both modeled after the 1930s, but one is strictly modeled after the 1930s, whilst the other is a horror icon. So, how do you remedy this problem? Well, that's where the interesting part comes in. Both have a game counterpart and a cartoon counterpart, which is really what makes this matchup interesting. If you use both, this debate gets really, really odd. The music potential, obviously, with two games modeled after the 1930s, it's bound to have some amazing music, especially if you listen to the song in the background right now. Props to Brandon Yates for this one. Now, I'm going to be very honest. I don't know who to root for, because I love Cuphead, but I'd argue I actually prefer Bendy more. But as for who I think wins, I'm probably going to get some flack for this, but I'd say that if you use both their game and cartoon selves, I would wager Bendy wins, primarily off raw resistances alone. Because of the fact that while Cuphead does have an ink well that can create anything or erase ink from existence, Bendy was able to survive the cycle, and from what I'm aware of, he can just come back on a whim and resist existence erasure. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but while Cuphead would hold a primarily physical advantage, Bendy would hold a resistances advantage, meaning that if Cuphead cannot score the kill he needs, he will inevitably fail. So, he can try all he might, but it seems that this cup was simply not in for a good time. I didn't know how to make a good ending pun. It's like 9:30 at night right now. I am so out of it. Next up is Knuckles vs. Piccolo from Dragon Ball and Sonic the Hedgehog, respectively. This is, aside from Sonic vs. Goku and possibly Mephiles vs. Zamasu, I would say this is the last major Dragon Ball vs. Sonic fight death battle should cover. Primarily because it covers more of the grounded side of both franchises, even though both aren't broken in the normal grounded in the normal sense, they do still mostly represent the grounded side of the spectrum. So I'd say this one is more so down to choreography and banter than it is the sheer cosmic scale they can get to. And the music is, honestly, if you've listened to both series, you would know that this can get really good, and it would just be raw fisticuffs, back and forth, and thematic-wise, well, I mean, you look at the two series side by side, I don't think I need to say much else, do I? But, where to go from here? The debate, right. I believe Knuckles wins? As far as I'm aware, it's almost 50-50, with the saving grace being Hyper Knuckles and the scaling the Chaos Emeralds get being ludicrous relative to Orange Piccolo, at least, even though, as far as I'm aware, Orange Piccolo does scale to Gohan Beast, I think. I haven't caught up on the DBS manga yet. Ooh, excuse me. So, yeah, I would give this matchup a solid, give this a solid 8 out of 10. Oh, the last matchup, Bendy vs. Cuphead, 9 out of 10. Forgot to say that. So, yeah. Next up, we have Rexy from Jurassic Park / World against Bruce from Jaws by Universal Studios. So, this is a growingly popular matchup, and I believe this was actually one of the pitched ones, and where do I go from here? This matchup is a, shall I say, fresh one. Neither series has appeared on the show yet, and I don't think we've really had a fight where terrain clashes. At least not in this way, because Rexy primarily dominates land, Bruce primarily dominates water. Now, this is an interesting debate, especially with just all the different sources you can pull from for both. Rexy has the assorted movies, of course, but also video games and book scaling, whilst Bruce is basically in the same ballpark. And I've heard mixed verdicts on this all over the place. I've seen some say Rexy absolutely slams. I've seen some say that Bruce is more than powerful enough to just pull her into the water and rip her apart. And I am leaning more so towards Bruce, especially with just how ludicrous the games are, but I understand that Jurassic World is no exception to that, so I would say that if we're just going off movies, I'd give it to Rexy. But if we're going composited, I would give it to Bruce. Let's see. This matchup could also be a very strong atmospheric fight, especially if it's one of the longer ones. You could definitely play around with the horror element of Jaws and get really bloody with it. Perhaps have it take place at night. And you could also have this move to different spots of the island Rexy is on, and just have the scenery change via that. While you could also incorporate some of the more quote-unquote martial arts elements both characters actually have. And yeah, off the music combinations from both franchises, the sheer gore, and bringing two brand new franchises to the show, I'd give this one a firm 10 out of 10. This matchup is an interesting one for me, because, how should I put it? Horror has many different takes. Frankenstein's monster is arguably one of, if not the original horror story, though there's some debate to be had about that. Meanwhile, Freddy Fazbear is the modern equivalent of horror done right. So this matchup is also thematic as all hell and could even be emotional, as both were given life they did not ask for. Frankenstein's monster being a, how would I put it, amalgamation of lost souls brought into the new world, and, well, forced into a life he did not want. Whilst Freddy, well, if you know FNAF lore, I'm sure you'll understand, but for those who don't know, stripped of the life he once had and forced into a new one. This is also an insanely grounded fight, and primarily a horror fight. Though I'm not quite sure how the two of them would get to each other's places, I am still certain that this fight could be a very interesting one, especially seeing as it be very much so on the slower side, and primarily focus on their stealth, intellect, and raw strength than blistering speed or busted abilities. Though, ironically, you could change that if you went composite for both, as both have some wacky appearances in other media, especially Frankenstein. So, yeah, I'd call this one, I give this a 9 out of 10. I want this one over any of Springtrap's matchups, but at the same time, I do feel like Freddy could have better ones, though I'm not quite sure. And Frankenstein, yeah, I'm not really sure about Frankenstein, honestly. Like, I don't know if he has any other major matchups that I'm aware of. He could, though, like the Universal Studios Monster Battle Royale, but not what we're here for. I would say, going by the verdict, I'd say that if we are to give both their more generous ends, I would say Freddy wins, but this isn't exactly a stomp. Both of them can harm each other in a number of ways. And I'd argue Frankenstein's monster is actually smarter. I don't think he's faster, though, as far as I'm aware. But yeah, for 9 out of 10, could be a 10 if done right, especially with how emotional the ending could be. So, what else can I say? Alright, Composite, you can get to reality warping scales with this fight if you really wanted to, though I wouldn't. But yeah, those are my thoughts on that matchup. So, and our last matchup is gonna be a bit of a short one. The Oogie Boogie Man from Nightmare Before Christmas versus King Dice from Cuphead. This is an absolute doozy of a fight. It can get all sorts of creative with the music, the banter, the choreography. You can bring in their armies for the fight if you want. And not to mention, this fight is all sorts of over the place with their abilities. Dimensional, travel, storage, soul manipulation, summons, etc. It gets all over the place. And as for who I think wins, given the Cuphead show, I would give it to King Dice. Actually, even without it, I'd give it to King Dice. But if you include Kingdom Hearts, I'd give it to the Oogie Boogie Man. Now, I'd say the best part of this fight is the music, no doubt. If you've heard Freshie Canal's rap battle, you know good and damn well this fight's worth a listen. And not to mention, if you listen to their home series songs, the Oogie Boogie song and Roll the Dice, pure, absolute audible cinema. Yeah, it's Disney and Cuphead, two franchises just known for their songs. Like, there are just some franchises out there where the music alone is all you need. Like Cuphead, Sonic, Mario, Disney. I'm not sure what else you need. And honestly, it amazes me that we haven't gotten the Nightmare Before Christmas on Death Battle yet. So, yeah, if there's any way to bring it onto the show, this would be it. No doubt about it. And with that, I'd like to thank you all for joining me on this late night venture. I hope you have yourselves a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I hope you all stay tuned for the next episode, because it's gonna be a doozy.